All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are totally bypassing all those vague motivational quotes and empty platitudes you see online. We're actually going to reverse engineer the universal blueprint of high achievers. We've pulled some incredible, actionable insights from our source material and broke them down into a structured, step-by-step framework that literally cuts right through all the noise. So let's get into it. So you gotta ask yourself, what is the true metric of success? Is it money? Is it status? Or maybe being born with some natural talent? Before we can start building habits, we really need to know exactly what it is we're measuring. Because, if we start out with a flawed definition, it's like we're climbing a ladder that's leaning against the entirely wrong wall. We absolutely have to challenge our baseline assumptions right from the jump. And look, make no mistake, people are completely desperate for this answer. The source material we're breaking down today, it absolutely struck a nerve. We're talking nearly 1.5 million views and tens of thousands of likes. To put that in perspective, that is a massive, universal hunger for a reliable blueprint. People are just tired of guessing, right? They want a framework they can actually plug into their daily lives, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack for you today. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. 1. Defining the success metric. 2. The 7 universal traits. 3. Building your success environment. 4. The power of routine. 5. Overcoming boredom and obstacles. And 6. The final success quote.
Starting off with Section 1, defining the success metric, moving beyond the surface level.
So we really need to strip away those perfect highlight reels we see all over social media and look at the actual nuts and bolts mechanics of achievement. Success is an active metric determined by your daily choices. It's not some abstract concept or a magical finish line you suddenly cross one day. It's an ongoing system. We constantly fall into this trap of obsessing over the final goal, like losing 20 pounds, or writing a book, or starting a business. But goals don't dictate success. Systems do. If you want to write a book, having the goal doesn't miraculously get it written. The daily system of sitting at your desk for 30 minutes to write 500 words, that does. Actually, scratch that. If your daily choices aren't aligned with your goals, those goals are basically just wishes. The big takeaway here is that we have to shift our focus away from the ultimate prize and lock in on our immediate daily execution. Moving on to Section 2, the 7 universal traits, the common thread of achievement. Okay, so there's a very distinct journey that high achievers go through, and it breaks down into 7 interconnected stages. Let's just run through them quickly because it really shows how they form one big complete puzzle. First up is active measurement. You have to know exactly where your baseline is before you can even think about improving it. Second, environment design. This is all about removing the friction between you and your goals, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Third is consistent routine, which is basically automating your execution so you don't have to rely on fleeting motivation. Fourth, disciplined planning. You're not just mapping out your day, but your whole week to anticipate roadblocks. Fifth is managing boredom. You have to expect that emotional dip when the initial excitement wears off. Sixth, mental toughness. That's the sheer grit you need to push through that dip. And seventh, continuous action, leveraging the compound effect of just doing the right things for a long time. Notice how none of these say, be a literal genius or get incredibly lucky. And you can't just pick one. They hold each other up. If you have a routine but lack mental toughness, you're going to quit when it gets hard. If you take continuous action but have terrible environment design, you'll feel like you're constantly swimming upstream. All right, Section 3, building your success environment, designing your surroundings. So a lot of folks think success is all about pure willpower. We totally idolize this idea of grinding through temptation. But human psychology actually tells us that willpower is a finite resource. It's literally like a battery on your phone, and it gets drained all day long through something called decision fatigue. Every single time you have to resist a distraction or force yourself to do something hard, you're draining that battery. If you're constantly fighting your environment, say, trying to study with your phone buzzing right next to you, or trying to eat clean when your pantry is loaded with junk food, your willpower is going to break. It is inevitable. Constructing a supportive physical and mental environment is totally non-negotiable. You have to design your surroundings so that doing the right thing becomes the absolute easiest, most frictionless option, and doing the wrong thing takes a ton of effort. Put the guitar on the stand right in the living room, not zipped up in a case in your closet. Hide the TV remote. Make your environment do the heavy lifting for you. Section 4, the power of routine, consistency over intensity. Now, there is a massive debate in the self-development world, intelligence versus discipline. We tend to glorify raw talent and pure intellect, but relying on intelligence alone often creates this really dangerous false sense of security. It makes you vulnerable to laziness. It's that classic gifted kid syndrome, right? Where early success comes so incredibly easy that the vital muscle of hard work never actually gets developed. So when things inevitably get tough, raw intelligence usually falls short if it isn't backed up by structure. But a solid plan and an ironclad discipline? Now that is the true secret weapon of high achievers. Discipline is going to beat raw talent almost every single time, simply because discipline shows up every day, while talent only shows up when it feels inspired. Consistency compounds, but sporadic intensity is just going to burn you out.
Get a load of this quote. Without routine, you will not succeed. It's a pretty bold claim, right? But honestly, when you look at the actual mechanics of human behavior, it makes perfect sense. Routine automates your discipline. Just think about the massive cognitive load of waking up every single morning and having to decide what to do next, how to do it, and when to start. That internal mental negotiation is exhausting. When you have an established routine, you completely bypass all that negotiation. You just execute. You remove all those little micro frictions from your day. Routine transforms really difficult tasks into your default behaviors. So I highly encourage you to evaluate the strength of your own daily habits right now. Are you operating on a structured system, or are you kind of just winging it and hoping motivation strikes?
Moving into Section 5, overcoming boredom and obstacles, building mental toughness.
Okay, here's a seriously counterintuitive truth. The absolute biggest obstacle standing in the way of your success isn't some huge, dramatic failure. It's boredom. We always picture failure as this giant, explosive mistake or some sudden catastrophe. But in reality, the biggest threat to your success is just a really slow fade. When you build a solid routine and execute it day in and day out, it stops being exciting pretty fast. It becomes incredibly mundane. And that is exactly when shiny object syndrome hits. You start looking around for a new strategy or a new business idea or some wild new workout plan. Not because your old one isn't working, but simply because you're bored to tears. We have got to stop viewing boredom as a personal failure or a sign that we need to completely pivot. We need to start recognizing it as a known, predictable obstacle. You have to actively anticipate that valley of disappointment. So how do you beat that inevitable boredom? By building unbreakable mental toughness. And look, mental toughness isn't about being overly aggressive or super macho. It's the quiet, direct antidote you need to push through the really boring, mundane parts of this success blueprint. It's simply the ability to stick to the plan when the initial excitement has completely fizzled out and absolutely no one is watching you. The people who reach the top aren't some weird mutants who never get bored. They feel the exact same boredom you do. They're just the ones who have the mental resilience to accept that boredom and do the work anyway. They literally just fall in love with the reps.
And finally, Section 6, the final success quote, your call to action.
I want to share this line with you. Success is not a giant leap in the dark, but a deliberate walk in the light of discipline, environment, and daily routine. This just beautifully synthesizes everything we've unpacked in this explainer today. You don't need some massive stroke of luck. You definitely don't need to be born a genius. What you do need is to control your environment so it actively serves you. Build a disciplined routine that completely automates your execution, and develop the mental toughness to stick to those traits even when it gets incredibly boring. That deliberate, steady walk, that is the true blueprint for success. I want to leave you all with a final, provocative question. What is the very first habit you are going to change today? Because knowledge is only potential power, right? It only becomes real power when you actually apply it. Please don't let this just be another explainer you watch, nod along to, and then passively forget by dinner time. Pick one specific thing right now. Maybe it's cleaning up your workspace to fix up your environment, or finally setting a strict wake-up routine for tomorrow morning. Make a decision and take immediate action. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this topic today, and I'll catch you in the next one.